So I was driving the car, I pulled into a spot with nobody on either side of me. She went into the store. A woman comes in a little teeny car and she pulls in with maybe this much space between my car and hers. She opens the door, she bangs into my door, and then she gets out. She's like 180 pounds, and she's like pushing on my door. I got out of the car. I said, "Oh, did you damage my car?" We looked, there was no damage. Thank God, my car just came out of the shop. Andrea went to Whole Foods a couple of weeks ago. She comes out of the store, she has a bag in her hand. She opens the back door of the car to put the bag in, and boom, a guy from the opposite side came out of the parking space so fast he hit her.
Yeah.
And you know what? Please, don't call the
We're
police.
gonna,
She
we're ready
already-
to start, so if you want.
Don't make an insurance report. Okay, you will make an insurance report.
All right, Ron, you ready?
You're crazy, man.
All right, Ron, we can let people in.
You're 2 minutes out and there's nobody.
Oh, I think it says noon. I think you're,
And you know what, she's very.
mine says noon.
What are you gonna do? She wanted to my license or something.
I have 11:58
On what?
Yeah, I have one of those.
on my computer clock.
I think it's wrong.
Okay, then we're live. So, yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Those who are in the room, we want to welcome you in person, and those who are online, we want to welcome you as well. One of my favorite quotes about art is from the movie The Goldfinch. And what the quote says is that when you see a painting that you love, or a piece of art that you love, or something that you care about dearly and love, that it whispers to you. It says, "Come here, come closer, come look at me." Well, for Judith Beiner, who is our guest today, what whispers to her and what whispered to her late husband are antiquities in Israel. And if you talk about the mixture of old and new that exists in studying antiquities and being tied to Israel and being a Zionist in terms of understanding the name of a city like Tel Aviv, Hill of Spring, or a Tel, an archaeological site of spring, you understand that old and new are side by side always in Israel. And literally walking, for those of you who are here in person, those of you who are in the room have to walk by hostages pictures, both those who have been released and those who are still in captivity. And there's perhaps no better epitome that that shows the old and new side by side than the fact that we are having a lecture that is looking back in time thousands of years ago and walking back past pictures of hostages that are going on today. And Judith's life in Israel, and you'll hear more about her life in general, but her life in Israel was very much tied to the ancient, even as living in the vibrant state. And we are blessed to have her as part of the synagogue and here with us today and hear how antiquities whisper to her. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Judith. There's a sheet I just need to share that I'll do that in a moment. But Judith, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit and take things away at this time. And if you talk, the camera will go to you. So just start talking.
Thank you. And for those of you who came in late, there are a couple of handouts that you can pick up whenever. So I am Judith Beiner. I know most of you here. I've been a member of Bethel for, pardon me for sitting, but as some of you know, I was in an automobile accident Friday and I'm a little, yeah.
Yes, and we wish you a speedy recovery, yes.
Let me just start by saying, I'm not an archaeologist, I'm not Indiana Jones, but my husband and I developed a deep love for archaeology and collecting, and I'm going to give you just a little brief history of that. And let me just say, my story is gradual, but as a dear friend named Robert Deutsch, who I will talk about, said, collecting is a disease and there is no cure. And that can be what we did with cars, but it's true, there is no cure. Stephen, my late husband, lived in Israel during the Yom Kippur War. He was involved in international education. And because of some work he was doing for the government, he met Moshe Dayan. And they became friendly. And Stephen would spend time with Moshe Dayan saying, oh, tell me about your battles, tell me about, how you were. And Moshe Dayan, they'd be in his apartment, Moshe Dayan would say, look at this pot, look at this, a little black shoe polish and you could cover up the cracks. And Moshe Dayan wanted to talk about pots, Stephen wanted to talk about battles. And at some point, Moshe Dayan needed money and offered Stephen, would you like to buy it? And of course, Stephen was a college professor at the time. And he said, sorry, I would have loved to, but I couldn't. Fast forward to 1981, Stephen and I got married. We were spending our honeymoon in Israel, and it was Motzei Shabbat, and we were in the lobby of Plaza Hotel, looking at the window of Barakat Galleries. The Barakat family is, they are giants in the field of archaeology, of Holy Land archaeology. And they've even, one of the Barakat sons had a magnificent gallery on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. So they've really spread out all over the place. And the gallery was closed, and this very handsome British gentleman comes up to us and says, oh, are you collectors? And we said, no, we're just looking. He said, well, if you want to collect or have any interest, there's only one person to go to, and his name is Robert Deutsch, and he owns the archaeological center in Old Jaffa. And we said, oh, okay. And we went and we went to see Robert, and that was the beginning. We left with about 10 or 12 pieces that were being sent to us. Do you have
The timeline? Yeah, I'll show that now.
And they represented all of the different periods and you all should have that sheet in front of you.
And those who are online, I'm sharing the sheet.
Yeah, the different periods in Holy Land archaeology. Now, let me just briefly, before we go into the history of it, let me explain that when you own a gallery, particularly when you collect for yourself, it's one thing. Although I have been intimately acquainted with a lot of people who make the front page of the New York Times, and not in a good way, in terms of.
Oh, no.
There are three things that you have to consider. The legality, the authenticity, and the provenance, which kind of go together. Many years, a while ago, you all are familiar with Botero, okay, when he was still alive, Christie's did an auction of South American art and featured on the cover of their very glitzy catalog a picture of a piece by Botero. Except Botero was still alive and called Christie's and said, that's not mine, I never did that. In which case the owner agreed to destroy the piece, and Christie's had a lot of explaining to do. So checking on things is very, very important. Now, in Israel, there is another special issue. Building contractors as well as archaeologists run into this. If you are digging and you uncover a bone, immediately the Orthodox authorities come in and check the bone to make sure the bones are not human. Because if the bones are human, you have to stop whatever you're doing, go through a whole thing and bury the bones properly. So when a contractor starts building a development, he just says a little prayer that The bones should not be, human. I won't go into it, but there were many steps that I had to go through to ascertain, and I also had a group of experts, to show each piece that I put in my gallery to make sure. Okay, you can at your leisure, you can take a look at, the paper that talks about how archaeology, develops. It is considered by some a destructive science, because if you're at a tell, which Rabbi Jessica mentioned, the tell is a big mound, you're starting at the top, which is the most recent. You have to destroy each level to get to the bottom. There are different ways. Please look at that so that when you have a chance. All right, it started millions of years ago. Could we have slide one?
Yes.
The earliest. Do we have slide one?
Oh, yeah, it takes us there.
Yeah. Okay. While you're doing that.
There you go.
The
It's there.
earliest site, yeah, the earliest site in Asia is in the Jordan Valley, and that was 1.4 million years ago. They found temporary shelters, they found bones of hippos, elephants, crocodiles that were probably their meals. And the earliest evidence of a hunt was 780,000-year-old site, if you can
Wow.
picture that, at Gesher Beno, Yaakov, on the banks of the Jordan. There were evidence that hunter-gatherers, that is, they deliberately went out, existed 250,000 to 14,000 years ago. So the Neolithic period was between 11,500 and 6,500 years. And at this point, man became a producer of food. Pottery developed. I mean, if it's just mind-boggling to think about, but about 8,000 years ago, and the earliest potters were the Armokans. The main village was on the bank of the Yarmuk River, in the Jordan Valley, and they found buildings. Now, this photo is about, these pictures are about 8,000 years old. And for those of you who have been to the Israel Museum, many of the photos you will see, if they look familiar, it's because you've seen them at the Israel Museum. If you take a look at them, their eyes kind of resemble seeds or pieces of grain, and there are traces that are hard to see here, but there are traces of red paint on them, which symbolized earth and light, and the hats they are wearing were probably from the elders. And of course, you do see a woman, you see an anatomically correct woman, and actually, I think both of them had boobs, but they were Neolithic, and the first temples, or sort of rudimentary temples, were built. Now, let's move quickly to the Chalcolithic period. Okay, this is a churn. And you can find, I ran, of course, I had one, many of these. What it showed, the Chalcolithic period, if you have the time, 4,500 to 3,300 BCE. One of the biggest and this is pre-Bible, of course. One of the biggest sites was Tel Gasul, again in the Jordan Valley, and it is modern day Jordan. Another big Chalcolithic site where you found pieces like this was En Gedi in the Dead Sea, and perhaps one of the very largest was Gilat in the Negev. And people lived in planned villages, they lived near, water sources. The Chalcolithic times were times of prosperity and peace, as far as the archaeologists could tell. They built sanctuaries, and most importantly, people learned how to mine. Remember, this is so many thousands of years ago. They learned how to mine copper and gold, and they developed the techniques to use them. The word Chalcolithic comes from two Greek words, chalco, meaning copper, and lithos, meaning stone. And because they were the first people to use metals and to shape metals, this is where we get the name Chalcolithic. And okay, can we go to photo 3? All right, these are figures. Now, again, if you notice the woman, many of the figures were stylized like this. These, again, if we talk about the antiquities market, these were available in many sizes and shapes.
That looks like my countertop in the middle. Right, the granite,
It looks like,
my countertop in my kitchen.
oh,
I don't know
yeah.
if it's granite or not, but.
Yeah, it's not really granite, it's stone.
Okay.
Those of you who
Right,
come in 2 weeks, you will see the pottery.
Is that open in the middle, or is it a flat piece of
No,
stone?
it's flat, those are flat.
Okay.
Judith, can I
you can
ask a
see the
question?
shadow, Maddie, a little bit.
Yeah.
Like at the
When you
bottom.
discuss like these earlier stages in the 8,000 years, have there been objects and things shown from other parts of the world, like in Asia, or as old, older, or
Yes,
same time? What do you know
there
about
have, and just to answer Margaret's question briefly, after I opened my gallery, which was many, many years in the gallery center on Military Trail, I discovered that as much as Stephen and I loved Holy Land things, it was Boca. People wanted a little variety. So we started adding Chinese, Egyptian, pre-Columbian, other cultures. And yes, Margaret, there were pieces. I didn't have any of them particularly, but they did exist. The Chinese were very laissez-faire in the way they uncovered their antiquities. They would plow through
But the
it.
point is, it was people saying,
Yeah, but there were people, but not as well documented as we have. All right, now, may I have, yeah,
How tall are those? I can't get a quick reference.
those things were like this.
Small, little
Yeah,
ones.
small.
Let me just share, in 2 weeks from now, we're curating Judith's artifacts. She donated some of the temple that is more at home. They're being curated, and on the 11th, there'll be an exhibit that'll be up, and on the 15th, the last class, we'll have a tour of that exhibit. So you'll actually get to see.
And touch and feel. I don't mind.
Oh, they're gonna be in glass cases. So if you want do you want the glass off?
No, I'm gonna bring some.
Okay,
With me.
all right, because ours will be in
I have
glass,
a
but.
picture of me, you and Steve did that lecture series here. This is March 12th, 2013, and I'm holding one of the pieces. It was very
Oh, at their
moving.
house.
No, this was at this temple.
Oh, really? Okay.
And
I remember we
this
did.
one that has Manian period. I felt like, it was
Really?
Abraham, and there I am. It was really moving,
Oh.
and it was meaningful, and we appreciate it.
Is this the slide you want to?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's,
great.
that is, in the same period, the ones I showed you were very abstract, but you also had much more, realistic, pieces. She is from Gilat, from that, site, and she is holding a churn on her head. And the archaeologists believe that she was a goddess. She also has something on her arm, probably a goblet of some sort. But she is anatomically correct all the way down. And they do believe that she was a goddess. Now I'd like to move out of the Chalcolithic into the Canaanite. Oh, that's okay. The Canaanite or early Bronze start talking about the biblical patriarchs. Now, this is very, very, very important. Archaeology and the Bible may share sites and names, but to this day, there has never been proof that any of the archaeological finds actually belonged to the people in the Bible. Yes, there was a King David, we have proof of his existence. Well, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. King David and King Solomon, there were different periods, but we don't know. We don't have a cup that David drank from. Okay. There's one little pomegranate in the Israel Museum that supposedly has some biblical reference. The Bronze Age, as you can see on this sheet, was divided, and now it's called Bronze Ore because they worked in bronze, or Canaanite, or if you say it in Hebrew, it's Canaan. But I'm going to say Canaan because it's just easier. There were 3 different periods, and the last one was when Israel was in Egypt. Now, during the early Bronze Age, city-states developed. It was simple mud brick architecture. If we could go back to the picture of that house, the model of the house. Yeah, flat roof, windowless, obvious a door, but nonetheless, people did live in houses like this. They were defense.
Sorry.
Oh, cute.
Sorry.
Back
to it, sorry.
And now this period corresponds to the time of the biblical patriarchs, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Again, it's important to note that the Bible says it's here. Archaeology says, yeah, okay, maybe, but we don't think so. There were trade networks established during this time with other regions, and so much of the archaeological findings were grave goods. So we're going to see that things that were buried with people, and you certainly know that from like King Tut's tomb, the pre-Columbian cultures also buried things in tombs. The Middle Bronze Age, there was more urbanization, there was a whole development of the Canaanite culture. Now, interestingly, the Canaanites were not just one people, and they were not necessarily the people who arrived after the Exodus, even though biblically, archaeologists really believe that the Canaanites were a group of loosely associated tribes. The Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and many of these gods formed a pantheon. The head of this group was El.
Do you want that? You want to stay at the house?
His wife was
Sorry, I'll
Hashem.
stay at the house.
The chief god was Baal, and Astarte, and I will show you some Astarte pictures because she was the goddess of fertility. By the time we get, do you have photo 6? Okay. This is a bowl with, yoked oxen. It was probably used, in drinking rites. That's what the archaeologists think. There's 2, now I had, in my gallery, I had something that looked like this, except it was a rim around the edge, and it was called a magic bowl because you put water in and it floated around and it came out. I don't even quite remember how it worked, but when I got a hold of this bowl, 6 dealers called me. They were fighting. Oh, I'll take it. I won't give you this. I kept it for a while. Eventually, because that was my business, I did sell it.
Can you tell us what it sold for?
I don't remember who or how much,
Okay.
but these bowls, as you can see, this was Canaanite. This was Middle Bronze.
How big was that?
About the size of a soup, like a cereal bowl, a soup bowl. Yeah.
I love, I would want this in my house, like, I think this is so contemporary. I love it, I don't know why, I'm very drawn to it.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and the animal, and again, more than one of these, they made a bunch of them. The Middle Bronze Age, again, the culture developed, they were dealing with Mesopotamia and Egypt, and this aligns biblically with the time of Joseph, who we know.
And that's this week's Torah portion.
Yeah,
We meet Joseph.
2000 to 1500 BC. Archaeological.
Right, can I just say, so Abraham's around 1800 BCE, Moses about
Yeah.
1200, so that's where you're hitting, these
Right.
biblical characters.
Right. And again, the archaeologists felt that, I won't go into this whole thing, but that Joshua came later, that when Joshua fit the Battle of Jericho, the Canaanites were already, there were things established. So we're looking at archaeology. Now the late Bronze Age, okay, they started developing domesticating animals, and this is a yoked animal who obviously carried oil or water in those jugs. And if you notice, the jugs were never flat bottomed. They had curved bottoms. And the reason for that is because there were no floors in the houses, the floors were sand. So the jugs were just dug into the sand of the floor. So that is, and again, the debate about the Exodus story and the identification of sites, the archaeologists do not tell you the same story. The late Bronze Age, again, the biblical period is the Exodus, but we do have questions. Okay, can we get the next picture? This is a tomb. This picture, this was found in a tomb. The tomb shaft, the burial, Baal, the chief god of the Canaanite pantheon, was often represented by a bull or a calf. And so this was found just like this. Again, not that large, probably this big. The bull was. These are not life size. These are all models. And okay, can we have the next one. Again, found in the tombs, again, around the Canaanite period. These were often attached to the walls of the tombs. And they would sometimes have human, images, but most times they would have animal images. Remember, this is before, we're gonna get to the time when the Jewish Hebrew culture says, no more representations, but we're not up to that yet. And if you look at the bottom of that, they burned incense. So, that was, like a pocket for incense, to be burned for the gods. And there were many like that. Often the methods of burial often represented foreign influences. Yeah, okay. I don't know how many of you have been to the Israel Museum, but there's a whole room of these guys at the Israel Museum, and they were found. They're Canaanites. They were found at Deir el-Balah in Gaza. Yes, Amina?
The one in the back on the left is very Egyptian looking.
Well, yeah,
I've been to the Met. You see people like that all the time.
right. Well, that's the whole thing. The human faces were introduced by, at this point, the Egyptians had heavy sway over, and they were introduced by the Egyptian overlords. Is that?
It's also like a point about curation, because like this curator chose to put these figures together, but they may have nothing to do with it. Like the guy in the front on the left looks completely different.
Right.
That's a much more childish eye than the eye on the right, which
Yeah.
is more sophisticated.
Well, they found 50 of these in Deir el-Balah.
Is the guy on the left, bottom,
So,
is he Assyrian?
Front left or back left?
there were
He looks very
Syrian
familiar,
influence.
trying to figure out.
It's almost alien, like a movie.
Yeah.
It's almost,
No,
Well,
are they bronze?
Thousands, and these were ossuaries, these were actual burial, I mean, people were actually, like in Egypt, this is,
were they buried vertically?
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
This was a major excavation, and you think about what's going on now in Gaza, and probably there is stuff still,
Turning up.
well, probably destroyed, they're not paying any attention to
Yeah.
pots now, you know. But
Are these stone or?
these are pottery and these are big, these are life size.
So would you put the whole human body in this, or you would wait for the body to?
No,
Be just bone.
These were like sarcophagi, this was the body, the ossuaries, which we're gonna talk a lot about, came.
So is it like like there's a lid
They're
or,
like cut in half, like
okay,
picture like that. Dan had a bunch of them in his house,
Diane,
Moshe Dan.
Yeah.
He was one of the major, when the battles were.
look at that hand. I mean, it's just remarkable.
I once spoke to a church group and I answered questions about Judaism, and somebody asked me if it was true that Jews got buried standing up. And I thought, who knows in thousands of years, right? But I'm not gonna be the one to tell them.
Yeah, this kind of, yeah,
And then Jews were buried standing up, right?
Well, they weren't
Quite
quite
Jews.
Canaanites, they weren't quite Jews yet.
Right.
I mean, it was, this is more Rabbi Jessica's realm than mine, but.
Look at the one in the back, he's definitely Egyptian looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very stylish.
Well,
Yeah.
think how many Gaza is.
Yeah.
I mean, they were very much influenced, by Gaza. And,
I have a question.
yeah,
I'm wondering how these correlated with the time frame of the terracotta soldiers in China? Because they were all life size,
right,
all individually stylized with their, face and their clothes.
Yeah, they were, the terracotta soldiers, I believe, and I've seen them, they're unbelievable. I think we're a little later, but not, they weren't BC, yeah, and
They're not burials. Terracotta soldiers are not burials.
no,
They are soldiers that were made to protect the emperor.
yeah, but I think what Matt is saying is that they were,
Yeah, they're upright.
They look.
And they're human size.
yeah,
I'm just-
Yeah,
yeah.
but they're not.
She's not saying they're buried.
I
She's
don't,
not saying they are.
They were not there, but they were buried and they.
yes, they're bigger than these. These are large, but the terracotta soldiers were large.
Okay.
They were larger. So there was a lot of trade going on. Can we have photos of the next?
Oh,
The vase.
here, I might have to reboot. Hold on. Yeah,
And that was, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, no, the basalt, all right, yeah, leave that.
this,
If you've ever been to Bet Shean,
Oh, yeah.
it's unbelievable. And most of the pieces, other than those last ones, were small. We could put them on a shelf or something. This was huge, and it was made of basalt, and it's two lions playing with each other, a male and a female, and they're playing with each other. And the bottom one has like a child playing with his father, and everybody bought, and they reproduced this for the Israel Museum. So we had one in our home in Jerusalem, and it was probably yay big. But the original one is really very, very large and quite beautiful. All right, now we can go on to the vase.
but this is just remarkable.
This is called the
believe it.
Charitier vase. Again, it's the same period. It's Mycenaean.
Amazing.
And if you know, like from the area in the Mediterranean, like around Crete, if you look at the figures, this is the only one, according to my research, it says the only one of its kind ever found. And it was found in Tel Dan, which is,
Oh, I visited Tel. If you were, what's his name? Abraham, who was the head of the site? It was very connected with Hebrew Union College.
yeah, I have to
It's,
think of it, but yeah.
Abraham, something,
Yeah.
Hebrew Union College in Israel, Jerusalem, has a lot of, Nelson Glick, who was one of the earlier presidents of Hebrew Union College, very strong archaeology interest and background, and so HUC in Jerusalem was involved, particularly, I think, in Tel Dan.
Yeah, yeah, I can't think of it.
It's either Avigdor or Abraham,
Yeah,
Iran, maybe, or am I making that up?
yeah,
I stand corrected. Terracotta soldiers are actually, funerary.
oh, they were,
Funerary,
oh, okay.
and buried with the emperor in 2010, 2009 BCE.
Right, the body, there weren't bodies in them,
No bodies.
right, everyone's saying the same thing, yes, yes,
Pieces with the purpose of protecting,
yes.
his afterlife.
The funniest thing about those things in China, have any of you been to see them?
Yeah.
Well, there's an old guy sitting at a table like this, and they say, oh, we are so lucky because this is the farmer who discovered them is here today.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I think they have a cast of farmers because everybody I've ever seen has seen them and said, oh. So, now, one of the most fascinating things about even the archaeologists, if you look at this sheet that says archaeology of the Holy Land, the historicity of the 10th century, and we're going to get to this period now. It's the time of King David and King Solomon, but the archaeologists at Hebrew University do believe in this. The archaeologists at Tel Aviv University deny the historicity of the 10th century BCE. I have been to lectures where these they actually fight with each other, and well, I don't physically, but they produce, this is the evidence that this never occurred, oh, but this is the evidence that it did occur. So besides fighting about the Bible, they're fighting with each other as well. And when you have a chance, you can look at it, and this is why there is, again, the thing is their direct
And
evidence.
it is Abraham Biron.
So
You-
this,
you
what's
visit
the name?
Abraham Biron. If you visited HUC in the 90s, you probably went to tell, it was like they took us there the first day. Because HUC, there's a Gluck School of Archaeology, they oversaw that site.
Yeah, but there was somebody else who, was very closely associated with that. When I do the next lecture, with the actual piece.
Okay.
I'm gonna talk about. All right, so now Israel and the Bible, and this is the Iron Age, these are the Israeli periods. Again, if you look at them, it's the period of the judges. Then we have the United Kingdom, and then of course we have David and Solomon, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel, and of course it all comes crashing down in 586 BCE with the destruction of the temple. This is the emergence of the Israelites, and this lasted 600 years until Bible. Now, the Bible says that the Exodus and the people came from Egypt, and again, many archaeologists feel that the Canaanites became the Israelites, and they established themselves. And eventually, we know the kingdom of Israel was in the north, and the kingdom of Judah was in the south. Israel was destroyed by the Assyrians in 722 BCE, and then Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem and the temple in 586. And the thing about this is it's all written. They've already developed writing. So the Babylon, now something else that was very interesting, when the Babylonians started sending people to Babylonia, they were very picky about who they sent. They didn't just take donkey loads of people. They chose architects, and they chose artists, and they chose craftsmen. They wanted the whole gamut. They wanted the whole culture. So they picked a lot of different people, and Babylonia fell to Cyrus eventually, and Yehud now, which was called by the exiles, and they were allowed to return, and they were there until it was again conquered by Alexander the Great. Okay, photo 13. This is, wait, let's get our right picture.
Is that wrong?
The settlement of the tribes, the birth of the monarchy, and yeah, okay. This, no, back. Keep going. We did her, all right, next. Yeah, okay. This is a four-cornered altar. And the fascinating thing about this is that they say that if somebody was a fugitive and running away from something, they protected themselves by grasping each of the four corners of the altar. And this was found in let's see what's it was discovered at Tel Rehov, again in the valley of Bet Shean. Okay, next one.
Or backwards? Here.
No, we did. Oh, wait.
We didn't do these two.
We did her.
No.
No, we didn't do her yet. All right. this again is, she is a goddess. And, she is considered, her name is Ashdoda. It probably is, she's Philistine. The Philistines were, they arrived from the Greek islands and they settled in the southern coastal plains. And, there were still some Canaanite symbols, but these now, came, and this was discovered, as I said, in Tel Rachel. Now, she is her nickname is Ashdoda. There are several of these. Stephen was in a bidding war to try and get one, he lost. And the guy who bought her I'm gonna discuss him when we get to the Jesus Oscillary. It's a man named Odette Galan. She was, the Philistines worshipped mother goddesses, and this is probably the most famous of the Philistine depictions of the mother goddess. It's a woman and her body is virgin with a throne. So we can see, and again, she was nicknamed Ashdod and she was found in Ashdod. Okay, let's move on now to this one.
Do you want the Sphinx, the winged Sphinx?
Pardon?
The winged Sphinx?
We are up to 15, yes. All right. The late Israelite stage, the United Monarchy and then the divided kingdoms, begins with the rule of King David and ends with the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem. Again, the Bible is a major literary source, but even more definitive for archaeologists are Assyrian and Babylonian documents because they're written. There is epigraphical material, actually things written on stones. During this period, of course, the temple was built, there were fortified cities, definite Phoenician influence, stels, bullae, and one of the fascinating things is the 4-room house plan. And if you go to the Eretz Israel Museum in Tel Aviv, not the diaspora one, but the one across the street from it, the Eretz Israel Museum, and if you go to, there's a kibbutz in South Jerusalem called Ramat Rachel, which is a great place because they have a swim club. Stephen and I used to belong. And you can actually see they've uncovered a 4-room house. You can actually see the floor plan of the 4 rooms.
Yeah, I've been, and actually, very sad, one of the hostages grew up at Ramat Rachel and he was visiting his girlfriend at kibbutz Berry, I think.
Well, Ramat Rachel is.
And all the parents have been hanging out together. So I think both the boyfriend and girlfriend are kidnapped and the parents have now met.
Ramat Rachel is on the way to Gilo.
Yeah, if you're in Jerusalem for the summer, you go there to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, we give passes, yeah.
If Stephen was pulled over by a policeman for speeding on whatever road it was, and he said, "Can I see your business, your identity card?" And Stephen showed him our Rachel card. He was so upset with that, but that's all we had. We didn't have the identity card, obviously. Anyway, so these, all right. Then we moved to the Israelite capital in Samaria. They found these carvings. They're magnificent. There's one called "Woman in the Window" that's absolutely beautiful. And this is a winged sphinx, and these were furniture attachments and bed attachments. And the prophet Amos is quoted as saying, "These ivory beds epitomize the depravity and corruption of Israelite royalty and aristocracy.
What year is it? Is it Sadducees?
We're talking about, somewhere between 1000 and 586.
So it's interesting, we're in Hanukkah time because the assimilation of Jewish people today at the season, you know, Jews have Christmas trees, and if there's not if there's a Christian person in the family, it makes sense, but those Jewish families have Christmas trees who aren't, there's no one Christian in the system. The Sadducees, which I guess would have been a little bit after this, but probably starting to rise, also were very Hellenistic. And they were doing the same thing. They were synthesizing the Greek culture and
Right.
losing. So that, I wonder, I mean, that's pre-Sadducee, that phrase,
Yeah, free because,
but it's what happened, and you could say that same phrase today,
yeah,
you know?
we're gonna get, we're running sort of out of time, so can I get?
You have 10 minutes.
Yeah, all right. Oh, we did that one, that was the, okay, but we don't know when.
Similar, but I think, you want me to go to the math?
No, that's later, go back. All right, we don't know exactly how the Israelites came to worship one God. I need the picture after the Sphinx. Is that the one after? No. Okay, then let's go to, then this is another, all right. But the evidence is gradually they moved fewer and fewer figurative images. And again, this is the altar I meant. This was.
And this is a four-horned altar is mentioned in Torah.
Yeah, for animal sacrifices. And this is the one where the fugitive seeking shelter would grab the horns for protection. Okay, the next one, the female figurines. These were very popular in the art market. You can get a lot of these.
Yeah.
And the widespread folk beliefs and customs here did exist along with the Hebrew now stuff. These were household amulets. They were stars or asheras. The women would take them and bury them under their doorposts or under the window things to ensure fertility.
And I think Rachel and Leah sat on them. Did they sit on them too?
I don't know.
I think in Torah, they sit in a basket. Women sit on a basket with these,
Yeah.
I think.
And I know, and a lot of them have been found.
We need to match like a biblical phrase with each thing.
Boy, everybody's early.
No, we're in a class. We're finishing a class.
Oh, and now let's just, the late Iron Age, that is the mask, if you can bring up the death mask, the next picture. Okay, during the late Iron Age, Israel and Judah were surrounded by a lot of independent kingdoms, city-states, and chief among these was the Phoenicians who were along the northern coast. And the Bible interestingly portrays these kingdoms in a very negative light, but archaeological evidence shows that there was cooperation, there was, sometimes they banded together to fight other kingdoms, and even there were alliances established through marriage. So again, the archaeologists, and again, the Phoenicians, with the east coast of the Mediterranean, which is modern day Lebanon, all the way down to Mount Carmel. And they found so much burial, funerary stuff in wealthy cemeteries. And this is a bearded male mask, which may have been hung on the wall or on statues to ward off evil empires. And the Babylonian Empire eventually conquered Assyria in the late 7th century and inherited all these, and just very briefly. So Zedekiah, who was the king of Judah, wouldn't accept Babylonian rule. So Nebuchadnezzar laid waste to Judah, Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and deported again, as we said, a large part of the population to Babylonia. And this brought an end to a period of political and religious independence that had lasted 6,000 years. Now, it's 5 to
Do you wanna wrap up and take questions? Or-
let's say, because I think, let me talk to you about next week, because we do have Persian, Hellenistic, Herodian, Roman, and, Byzantine and Islamic, they're smaller, but.
And Ron is gonna wrap up. I have to run, but Ron is gonna wrap up.
All right, so, we will talk, let me see if, Rabbi, if you need me next.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to you during the week.
All right,
Yeah, you can be here. Yes, yes.
All right, any questions? I'll tell you an interesting story, we have 5 minutes. The hazards of this. So, I bought a piece from Christie's. It was a vase, it was like a Cypriot vase. And you gotta be very careful with Christie's, I figured, I did a lot of business with Bonham, Sotheby's, and Christie's. And I'm in my gallery, and in walks this guy with an immigrant INS shirt with guns and everything. And he says, you have a piece, you have this piece that's been stolen. It's been identified on the art registry and it was stolen. And I said, yeah, do I? Which piece? And he showed me a picture and I said, yeah, I got that from Christie's. And he said, well, Christie's did not, it was taken by a man named Medici, not related, but a big famous art thief named Medici. And I said, well, what do you want? I won't go through the details, but the funniest part, so I gave it back, I got my money back, Christie's apologized, they sent me free catalogs, all kinds of stuff. And then he said to me, well, you've been very nice, you've cooperated, and it's going back to Rome, and we'd like to invite you to the reunification ceremony of peace. So I said, oh, wonderful, going back to Rome, where is it gonna be? He said, at the Miami airport. I politely took. But I had the gallery, I mean, we collected for many years and I had the gallery for 20 years and the people we met and the places we went to and I dug a little at Megiddo, digging is very boring, you sit there in a corner with a thing. But when you know the archaeologists, when you know the people who are actually running the digs and they take you to the sites before anyone comes or after, Edward Netzer was digging at his life's work. He was from Hebrew University. His life's work was Herodian, which is the winter palace of King Herod, as opposed to Caesarea, which was the summer palace, Caesarea. And he took us, we met him a couple of times, and he would take us after everyone had left and shown us these wonderful things. And this is the saddest story to me. It was his life's work, and he had proof that this was. And one day the man was standing on a wall in Herodian and fell off and died. He fell off the wall and was killed in Herodian. So maybe it's fitting that if he had to die, he wasn't that old, he was in his 70s at the time, but but being in these places, not with a tour guide, but with a guide who's actually digging tour guides are wonderful. If you've all been digital, you know that the guides are amazing. But spending 20 odd years with this gallery, it was really, amazing, and not next week, but the week after next, the pieces will be on display. They were, but Stephen and I, donated them with Sammy, Usama Taha, who is a, Palestinian Muslim born in the old city. Rabbi Dan knows him, I've introduced them. We spent a lot of time with him, and I'm just heartbroken because his whole family, you know, is under siege now. He's not from Gaza, he's from the West Bank, but still. Any questions?
That's one.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.